All under 18s removed from Scotland's young offenders institutions. Now, there are many problems with this, which I will get into a little bit later. I'll get into it at the end. All under 18s have now been removed from Scotland's young offenders institutions and transferred to more child friendly settings. The change follows suicides of young people while detained at and the passage of a new law that bans children being sent to prison. As recently as July, there were still 9, 16, and 17-year-olds still held in custody at Polmont Young Offenders Institution near Falkirk, but the final child was moved to a secure children's care unit on Friday. And that's the issue. The children's care unit, children's homes. Now, prison is an awful place for a child. Children's homes, not that much better. The Scottish Prison Service said it was a landmark day with children no longer admitted into our care. BBC News Scotland understands the change will free up about 70 places in the prison system. They really want that prison system emptied. I wonder why. In recent years, 2 under 18s are believed to have taken their lives at Polmont. William Brown, also known as William Lindsay, was 16 when he died in 2018, while in July, 17-year-old Jonathan Beadle is understood to have died by suicide. Scotland's Chief Inspector of Prisons, Wendy Sinclair Gibbon, has previously said, hyphenated her name, has previously said sending 16 and 17-year-olds to facilities such as Polmont, especially those who have not yet been convicted, was a breach of their human rights. The Scottish Government promised in March 2022, I love how they care about human rights when it's like not speech. The Scottish Government promised in March 2022 to end the practice, and the Children, Care and Justice Scotland Bill received royal assent this summer. Minister for Children and Young People Natalie Doninus said the government had been moving at a pace to implement the new law. This will ensure children in conflict with the law are placed in safe, suitable accommodation, which will ensure their well-being, and rehabilitation is at the heart of their care, while also keeping communities safe, she said. Campaigners have welcomed the move, which they say should lead to better outcomes for young people. Fiona Dyer, director of the Children and Young People Centre for Justice, told BBC Scotland News that prison environments could be detrimental and traumatising for young people. She said many children who are 16 and 17 and are in conflict with the law are some of the children who are placed in the most vulnerable situations, who have backgrounds that are characterised with trauma, and we are re-traumatising them by putting them in environments that are not designed for children. Polmont's a bad place. Polmont is an awful place. Iona 1, gang, but right, but Polmont's not a fun place. It is not a good place, and it's definitely not a place for children. Right? If you think like the big boy prisons are violent, they are, but like and the young offenders, everybody's got something to prove. There's a lot of bullying, there's a lot of violent attacks, there's a lot of really horrible stuff that happens in there. And if you are some little fresh-faced 16-year-old getting sent in there, you are in for a very hard time. You're in for a very hard time. But again, children's homes. We should be so proud in Scotland that we are taking this child-centred approach and leading the way to our neighbouring countries. There are currently 4 secure care centres in Scotland, each of which houses young people in groups of up to 6. The centres are overseen by the Care Inspectorate and run by care staff who work with the young people. Ms Dyer added, as well as getting their behaviour addressed, they are also getting the care and nurture that children need to survive. The death of Jonathan Beadle in Polmont in July, understood to be by suicide, was the second such death of a teenager at the site in 6 years. The 17-year-old was sent to prison after pleading guilty to a charge of acting in a disorderly manner and being in possession of weapons with intent to assault and murder a 16-year-old girl. God damn. That took a left turn. A joint fatal accident inquiry was held earlier this year into the deaths of Katie Allen, 21, and William Brown, 16, who both took their own lives at Polmont within months of each other in 2018. William, also known as William Lindsay, had never been convicted of a crime and was only been sent to Polmont because a place could not be found for him in a secure children's unit. Niall Cahill, a project worker who knew William, said the change in the law was fantastic news. Regardless of what somebody has done at that age, they at least deserve the chance to be cared for, he told BBC Scotland News. They are children at the end of the day, and everybody needs that at one point in their life, that little bit of care for somebody that shows they care. The youth worker described William as a charismatic, funny boy who was so full of life. William spent most of his life in the care system, being moved between 23 placements, including homes and secure units, in 15 years. That's something that happens a lot in the care home. Throughout that, he kept an energy, kept a friendliness and a funness about him, probably to cover up quite a bit of pain, because that was there too, he said. He added, I hope that lasts as William's legacy in this. It breaks my heart to think that William would just be forgotten in all of this, because you've got to learn lessons from such a catastrophic mistake. Victims being forgotten. However, the charity Victim Support Scotland said that while it welcomed the move, it had concerns over victims being forgotten as a result. A representative for the charity said they believed that families impacted by the change had not been informed about it. They added, we hear repeatedly from victims that there is a lack of support and information provided about the progress of their case, and our worry is that this change will exacerbate the issue, especially with serious violent and sexual offences becoming more common within this age group. I mean, yeah, within this age group, but it's... I don't have to say, you all know. The representative also said that there could be a negative impact on victims from the changes, because basically the entire point of the prison system is not just to punish, but also to rehabilitate, which, as we very well know, it doesn't actually do very well. Now, as someone that has actually worked with children that have gone through foster care, we have dealt with children who have been in these care homes. And now, a lot of them get placed in the care homes early. Now, what they actually try and do is find foster parents, because growing up in a close-knit family environment is a lot more beneficial for the children. It just is. Right, you know, it's not good being in a prison, it's not good being in a children's home. It's so much more beneficial being in a family environment. You know, the way that children are supposed to be raised. Now, a lot of people think, oh, they're in a children's care home, that means there's no bullying or violence or any of the horrible stuff you get in prisons. No, 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 they still have that. They absolutely still have a lot of that. And also, there has been a little bit of abuse from heavy-handed staff. You know, there's been sexual assaults from other children that are placed in the care home and stuff like that. And also, in other cases as well, a lot of the children are allowed out. They're allowed out, and then they're roaming the streets, and sometimes they're committing a little bit of crime, and sometimes a lot of young girls from these care homes, you know, very, very vulnerable young girls, you know, with a lot of behavioural problems, a lot of trauma, you know, in very many cases, unfortunately, a history of sexual assault from family members or mummy's new boyfriend and all that, they end up talking to the men that run the kebab shop. Basically, there was yeah, Rotherham and all that was possible for a reason, right? Basically, there was a large availability of vulnerable young girls, and a lot of them were in children's care homes because they didn't have proper adult supervision. They were allowed out on their own. A lot of the stuff wasn't checked, and whenever they come back to the care home at night, what did you get up to today? Nothing. Because there wasn't enough checks and balances in place to make sure that these young girls weren't going out and doing, you know, etc., etc. Right? And because they're young and, you know, they're young little rebels, I'm not telling you what I did and everything like that. And then also there's even just more abuse that happens within the care home itself. So everybody's going, oh yeah, it's great that they're not going to prison. Now, I will admit, a care home, a children's home is a lot better than a prison, but a children's home is still not a good place. It's not a good place. Right, it's still a very, very bad place where a lot of abuse can happen. And in many cases, there's a much higher propensity for sexual abuse. Right, I'm not saying from the staff, although there has been instances of that, right, but I'm not saying from the staff. I'm just saying that the children are not supervised enough when they go out, if it's one of those care homes that they're allowed to leave to go, I'm going to go and hang out down the park, and then it turns out they're down the park drinking fucking Eldorado and Bucky and all that type of stuff. That's an issue, right? Now, this change, will it actually help? I don't know. I genuinely have no idea. However, one thing that I definitely will say is, see how the children's, as someone who has heard all the horror stories directly from children who have came from such places, the children's care home like system in Scotland needs absolutely fucking revamped.